This is Midwest Moxie, a show about our region's visionary entrepreneurs and the experiences that shaped them. I'm your host, Kathleen Gallagher, Executive Director of Five Lakes Institute. Omar Farha discovered in graduate school at UCLA that he was wowed by metal organic frameworks, MOFs as they're called by chemists. MOFs were like sponges that could soak up toxic gases and other health hazards, one of the most exciting and oft-cited areas of chemistry. So when Omar arrived at Northwestern University in 2007, it took him just 4 years to find two like-minded co-founders and start NuMat. The Chicago company designs custom MOFs that provide chemical protection, safe storage of toxic gases, and carbon reduction in energy-intensive processes. NuMat has 3 facilities in Illinois, Wisconsin, and South Korea, employs about 80 people, and has raised $78 million. Omar, welcome to Midwest Moxie.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Why were you so wowed by MOFs? And is it true that 1 gram of this material can have a surface area the size of a soccer field?
Let me answer the second question first. And yes, because that actually was discovered in my own lab. So we know that's to be true. It's actually 1 gram of it. A gram of a MOF, you could think about it the same size as 1 piece of M&M. That's hardly anything. But if you are able to unfold it and lay it flat, you could cover 1.3 football fields. That's astonishing. And that's what got me to be wowed about MOFs, that we have the ability to build unlimited number of materials because we have thousands of organic linkers. We have a whole periodic table to pick from for metals. And theoretically, you could make millions of these materials. And so far, scientists around the world made more than 30,000 of these materials. Why is that become important? This way, we could actually be able to custom make materials, and we design it for the objective or the application we want, instead of having one material that is mediocre at a lot of things. We could make things custom made to be great at what we want them to do.
So when you make these materials in the lab, like you said, they're the size of maybe an M&M. They're really small. They're clusters of metal ions. And how do you hold them together?
Yeah, so in chemistry, this is called coordination chemistry. So the organic ligand, it's like Legos. It has the right threads to go around the metal, and you have metal ligands, and they keep growing in 3-dimensionality. Let me say, when they come out of the solution, they are the size of almost table salt, not a whole size of M&M. I'm just saying, if you take a bunch of those little table salt crystallites to make the size of an M&M, that's what give you that's 1 gram, which means 1 piece of M&M, if you make the right MOF, we call it NU 1501, that has the ability to cover more than a football field.
And so they can absorb these toxic gases. That's one of the things.
And that's exactly right, because gases like to adhere to surfaces. The more surface you have, the more hot sites for the gas to adhere to. And that's why making materials such a small volume, but huge surface area, allows us to be able to absorb those toxic gases at high capacity. But we didn't just stop there. We added 1 more piece to the puzzle, which is what we call a catalyst. The material itself has also a catalyst that has the ability to take the toxic chemical and detoxify it instantaneously. So you're not just absorbing the toxic chemical, you're also detoxifying the toxic chemical as well.
So you started working with these. You were really excited about them. NuMat is the first company to successfully commercialize MOFs. How did you do that? What made you want to have a company and turn these into industrial powerhouses?
Yeah, that's really a good question, because every time myself and many in the field, when we go give a talk, like any new material, people will ask you, are these materials scalable? Are they stable for the applications? Is the cost appropriate for the applications? And we got tired, or personally, I got tired answering those questions. And a lot of times, what we do in the lab is very hard to address those questions. We make things at small scale. We don't care about the cost. We never test materials for the longevity for years. And I thought it's really the right time for us to start a company and start addressing those questions. And when we started the company, we wanted to go after an application in the semiconductor industry. And the reason for that, because it's an application that is low volume, high value. For a startup company, you don't want to go after commodity chemicals from day one because you're just not going to make it. So we went after a high value, low volume application. And because of that application, we were able to show that these materials are scalable. They survive, the longevity can be for years. And the cost, you cannot generalize because it depends on your organic ligand and your metal. That means there is MOFs. They can be cost competitive against other porous materials. And there is MOFs. They'll be very expensive. If you want to use gold as your metal, obviously your MOF's going to be expensive. You got to use aluminum and titanium, then your MOF is going to be cheap. So it really depends.
So in the semiconductor industry, the problem you're addressing is some of the toxic gases that are used in production?
No. So in both cases, for the Department of Defense and for the semiconductors, we're dealing with toxic gases in two different ways. For the military, we want to be able to capture the toxic gas and detoxify it to protect humans. For the semiconductor industry, we actually store the toxic gases to deliver those toxic gases in a safe manner. Why those toxic gases are needed? The wafers that they use in the semiconductor industry to make our chips for our iPhones and iPads, they are required to be doped with certain elements, and those elements come from super toxic gases. And NuMat figured out how to store them below 1 atmosphere in a safe manner for them to be delivered in the fabs and on the tools in a safe manner. So you could see, one, we store the toxic gases and we deliver it as a toxic gas, but in a safe manner. The second one, we capture the toxic gas and we detoxify it. So we have the ability to do both.
It's like magic. You've described these MOFs as sponges because they absorb all this stuff. But what NuMat does is turn them into smart sponges. How do you do that?
Yes. See, what do we use in our kitchen? We call it a dumb sponge. Because if you spill your Diet Coke or your mimosa, it doesn't care. You could wipe both with the same sponge. Versus here, we have the ability to make these sponges more, think about it like a magnet, more magnet toward particular chemical, but not others. Like if I want to go after capturing CO2 from air, I don't want to go capture the oxygen because it's not doing anything for anyone. I want to just capture that CO2. And we have the ability, using a lot of chemistry, to be able to make these materials more magnetic. I'm using the word magnetic loosely here, more magnetic, or can capture CO2 but not oxygen, or vice versa. Or if I want to go capture the toxic chemical, I don't want to capture the water molecules in the air. I only want to capture the toxic chemical. Or if I want to capture the water molecule and actually convert it to drinking water, I could do that too. So that means the way we modify the chemistry of our sponges make them selective for certain chemicals, but not others.
And you use software, obviously, to do that as well.
Sometimes you do for certain applications, and sometimes chemist intuition is great.
NuMat raised its first funding from business plan competitions, which also provided you introductions to your first investors. What makes a good investor for a deep tech company like NuMat?
The first thing, a patient investor, because obviously if you're the first one to commercialize a material class, that's going to take some time. So you need a patient investor. Then you need a smart investors, the ones when you get in trouble or you're having difficulty solving a problem, they could help you with that, or at least they could connect you with someone who could help you with that. And they could open doors for you. So you don't want just a money from anyone that they're not going to be able to advance your technology and help you with your science and discoveries.
I want to point out you're involved in the company, but you're also chair of the chemistry department at Northwestern University. Has your experience with NuMat changed the way you approach being a university professor and researcher?
And also made me a better chair, I believe, because you have to, you think about what a department is. A department is a giant company with small businesses. Each PI has their own group. You could consider that as a small business within a company, and under the umbrella of your company, 30, 40 businesses. Being able to learn what I learned from NuMat and how we manage businesses honestly made me a better chair, I believe, but also made me a better proposal writer, because we professors like to talk about just the fundamental aspect of science, which is great. We need that. But also, when now I start writing my grants, I don't just concentrate on that. I try to show the reviewers and the grant managers where this material can go beyond basic science if we are able to address the basic science questions.
That's awesome. NuMat already has 3 key products on the market for the semiconductor, defense, and security, and industrial and energy markets. How much more potential does this company have? Where do you see it going?
I would say the company is the sky is the limit. But the question, like any other small companies, you cannot work on everything simultaneously. Then you will dilute your manpower and then nothing gets done. So yeah, NuMat started with, okay, we want to go after the semiconductor industry. When we reached the potential that we have now a product on the market, then we went after the Department of Defense, and now we're going after the energy sector. And as I said, the more we grow, the more we could handle. But at the same time, this is a platform technology. Platform technologies are good and bad at the same time. Good because you could work on a lot of things. Bad because you could work on a lot of things, which means as a company, you really need to be focused.
What's the range of possibilities with these MOFs? What kinds of products can you envision in the future?
We talked about just a couple. Imagine capturing CO2. 15% of the world energy goes to separating molecules from each other in the petroleum industry or in the chemical industry. How about if we could make these separations more energy saving? This way, we don't have to use 15% of the world energy. Make them a better catalyst. Make them used for a drug delivery. Make theranostics. Being able to stabilize proteins and enzymes. This way, one day, when you make vaccines, you don't have to store them at really cold temperature. Can you use these sponges to stabilize these vaccines at room temperature and be able to take them around the world in a cargo airplane? These are the type of things. So the future is still bright. We just scratch the surface in potential applications.
Right here in the industrial heartland, building out these new materials. It's so exciting to hear about. Thanks so much, Omar, for joining us on Midwest Moxie.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it.
You can read more about today's guest by visiting wuwm.com. Don't forget, you can also listen to the show as a podcast if you'd like to take us on the go. Just search for Midwest Moxie, that's MOXIE, wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'm your host, Kathleen Gallagher. Midwest Moxie was created by executive producer Audrey Nowakowski and me. Today's episode was produced by Audrey Nowakowski and engineered by WUWM's Jason Reevy. Join us next Saturday afternoon at 2:30 to hear from more visionary Midwestern founders building innovative companies. That's right here on 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. Support for Midwest Moxie comes from Microsoft, whose efforts to drive technology development across the Midwest and beyond include its National TechSpark community engagement work, which started in Wisconsin. its role as co-founder of Titletown Tech in Green Bay, and its new AI co-innovation lab at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. More information is available at Microsoft.com. Support also comes from Quarles, a multidisciplinary AM Law 200 firm with approximately 550 attorneys who support large and small businesses, from Fortune 500 companies to startups and entrepreneurs across the country. More at Quarles.com.